So what are your options for DCC systems and what are the affordable options as well? I'm going to talk about that plus answer a lot more of your questions right now. Hey everybody, my name's Jimmy. Welcome to Coffee and Trains. Today I'm drinking some more of that Kauai coffee. I can't get enough of that stuff. If you want to tell me what kind of coffee you are drinking and have it featured just like these guys right here, you can leave that in the comments below and you might see your name pop up. Also, this is the monthly Q&A that I always do, and if you want to have a question answered in next month's Q&A, you can leave it in the comments below and you might see your question answered in next month's Q&A. Cheers, guys. We start off with the Zukaitis family, and they ask, is it possible to get Polar Express passenger cars where the passengers move on the inside? Now, for those of you that don't know, the Polar Express is a famous children's Christmas book that was turned into a movie where there's actually a scene where they serve hot chocolate and there's a lot of dancing that goes on. So having moving figures within the passenger cars might be something interesting to model. Now, as far as I know, the only current company that models the Polar Express that offers that is Lionel. I'm guessing they have the licensing on it, and I don't think they have any moving passengers in there, but there is the potential. It would be something that you would have to do yourself as a custom job. I don't think that it is something that you can just buy a product for. That being said, it wouldn't be that hard. You may be able to do something where it may not necessarily be passengers moving, but you could do some silhouetting with some rolls with some silhouettes and things like that moving around as well. That may be another option for you, but it definitely would be a custom job. 123 Alley Cat asks how I wire my reversing loops and how do I operate them? Well, it depends on what I'm doing. Now, I use Kato Unitrax, so I designed a system that threw the turnouts and switched it when it crossed an infrared beam in terms of switching the polarity, because in a reversing loop, you have to change the polarity, otherwise you're going to have a short circuit, unless you're running something Lionel, which has that third rail. Now, when I do this, I basically just have two little infrared sensors and I have the loop insulated from the rest of it, and then I have relays that switch it. And I've actually done a video on this and I'll put that link at the end of this video, but that is how I do it. Now, if you want something a little bit simpler, there's a lot of companies that make the pre-made auto reversing product. The key thing is just having that loop insulated from the rest of your track, and you can look at NCE, Digitrax, Bachmann even makes one for its EZ track. So that is how I do it. Silas Brugger YT5708 asks if you can run DCC engines on a DC layout. The answer is yes. The vast majority, if not all DCC decoders by now, have an option to where they can have dual functionality. So you can run DCC locomotives on a standard DC layout. It does kind of go the other way, but for DCC, yes, you can run them on a DC layout. And there's some other products that we'll talk about here in a bit that make that even more fun. B. Kaufman 2010 asked about JMRI, where he would start with it and where he could download it, what computer does he need, and how would he connect it to the track and where to purchase the parts from. Well, first of all, JMRI, I'll put the link to download it in the description below. So that is where you could get it, jmri.org. It's totally free. And for computers, pretty much any computer will work. JMRI runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And I've actually ran it on a Raspberry Pi Zero. I did that years ago, and it was a little slow, but it did run. So you do not need a very powerful computer. It can usually just be a budget computer. They actually designed a whole version of Raspberry Pi Linux that will run the whole thing in auto start and everything. I've had that on a previous layout. That's originally how I controlled MRR1. Now, in terms of what you need to connect with it, the simplest way is going to be something like DCC++, DCC EX, one of those. That's going to be your most affordable way. Your simplest way actually is going to be something that's a pre-made product like for NCE or Digitrax, depending on if you have these systems already or not. You also have the Sprague, things like that. Anything that's like a USB interface that allows you to connect the computer to the track. In terms of purchasing them, you can pretty much just go on your favorite model railroad website. I'll link some below where I find them from. The Check 5023 asks if there is an easy way to see trains that run in a specific area, short lines and main lines. Now, in terms of figuring out what the specific short lines are, you're probably just going to have to resort to doing a little bit of Googling. But if you want to see where main lines, branch lines, and various different types of lines are, openrailwaymap.org is a great one. It's based off of OpenStreetMap, and it shows main lines, branch lines, junctions, all this different kind of stuff. And you can see where those short lines are, where those branch lines are, and you can go and look in the areas and figure out, say, Google what railroad runs through what town. So you can go and take a look and see what is in there. But a combination of openrailwaymaps.org and Google is probably going to be your best bet for finding stuff relatively quickly. Jim Vanacoot 3971 says that he recently saw an email about converting DC to DCC using an NCE Powercab starter kit, and he's not very clear on what you can run with DCC locos when you convert to this. And this is something that can be a little bit confusing when you're running this, especially when you consider that DCC locomotives typically can run on a DC layout. So in terms of a DC, technically you can on most systems. They have a DC mode. I believe NCE's Powercab system has a DC mode, but the thing you have to consider is that DC locomotives operate by varying the voltage to the track, whereas DCC systems have some sort of constant stream of about 14 volts, 12 to 15, somewhere around there, depending on your power system, of voltage going to the track. And it's AC, a type of AC, but it's still going to be harder on those DC locomotives. So yes, you can technically run it, but it's not the best idea to do it for an extended period of time. If you really want to have DC and DCC operations, something like a switch that you can throw and change over to DC and have a DC power pack, and then when you want to run DCC, flip over to the DCC system and run it. Or you can do like what I do and just have swappable barrel plugs when you occasionally want to run a DC locomotive and then DCC locomotive, and just have a way of disconnecting the DC system and connecting a DC system. So yes, you can run DC with a DCC system, but it's not the best thing for the locomotive. Viking of England asks, have you ever considered modeling narrow gauge? Yes, I actually love narrow gauge, and I think that especially like US narrow gauge, where it is, first of all, I love all narrow gauge. I think that British and European narrow gauge are gorgeous. It's one of my favorite things to run on a garden railroad. But American narrow gauge was used a lot in the Mountain West, and it's some of those more iconic older steam locomotives. A lot of those were narrow gauge locomotives, the ones that you think of out in Colorado and the Rockies and that kind of place. So narrow gauge is something that is really, really neat. You can see it in like logging and mining operations. So I would love to model narrow gauge and just do something. There's something just neat about those little locomotives and how they run. And I can't explain it, but I'm definitely you're gonna see me do a narrow gauge project on this channel at some point. William Coulston asked me, what are my thoughts on rail fans that keep getting harassed by the police and other people? He says he saw someone from up north posting videos, and the latest one is someone telling him that he is interfering with operations and disrupting traffic. Well, before I get into anything else, if a railroad person, a railroad official, is telling you that you need to move or you need to get out of the way or you need to be somewhere else, just listen to them, because they're A, trying to keep you safe, and B, trying to keep the railroad running smoothly without delays and disruptions. So that's all they're trying to do. They're not trying to do anything else, and ultimately we don't want disruptions either. So just respect anything that the railroad people are saying and just do what they ask. Now, in terms of police and other people, I'll first address police. Police are just trying to do their jobs. They are trying to keep people safe when it comes to issues with rail fans and things like that. They may see something that you don't. They may know something that you don't. They may just want you to be safe and not have another incident. just talk to them, ask them what a better place is if they're wanting you to move somewhere else. It may not be where you are standing, it may be where you parked your car. So you may just need to listen, try to work towards a solution that works best for other people, and just talk in a respectful way and just have a conversation with them. Now, obviously, people that are just going to harass and be mean for the sake of being mean, even if you're 100% in the right, you can't really reason with people sometimes like that. And trust me, I know I was a news cameraman for years and years, and people are just going to want to harass for the sake of harassing. Some people just enjoy it, and that's weird and wrong, but some people just do. And what I would say is know your laws, know your rules, know where you can stand, but also each situation is different, and it's kind of a case-by-case basis thing, and it really just depends. Ultimately, the vast majority of people are not going to want to mess with people, and a lot of times we're only seeing the outliers, and most rail fans are not bothered at all. We just kind of see the exceptions. Those are the ones that make the internet. So overall, it's a case-by-case basis. I don't love it when a rail fan gets harassed, but a lot of times we're seeing the exceptions and not the typical situation. Andrew Lavergetta asked me if I had more information about my BudRDC. He said he picked one up recently, runs okay DC, but he'd like to convert it. And I did say when I did mine that I changed the motor. Well, mine's an old Concore one. It's the really old one. I can't remember who made it for Concore. If I look it up, I'll put it in here, right here. But basically, it had a very simple motor that I was able to actually pick up off Amazon. And the reason that I actually had to replace the motor is because my soldering iron actually melted a spot and it kind of popped out. And so the motor wasn't actually bad. It's just when I was soldering the contacts, I kind of messed up. But I was using a Digitrax DZ123 in it, and it was a pretty simple conversion. It's not the smoothest runner, but it was a pretty simple conversion. And yeah, they're really easy to convert. They have a ton of space on the inside. So yeah, Digitrax DZ123 is the decoder that I used for that. New Age Link asked me if I have any recommendations on where to buy new motors for in-scale locomotives. He says he has Kato steam locomotives imported from Japan that he wants to convert to DCC, but he's new to conversions and he's worried about ruining the motor. Well, lucky for you, Kato has a great parts department on their website. I've ordered plenty of replacement parts. I've ordered replacement chassis, motors, trucks, like wheel sets, all these different things from there, and they take a few days to get there, but it is a great place to look. I will link their parts department for Kato USA in the description below, and if I can find one on the regular Kato website for their Japanese stuff, I will do that as well in the description below. But yeah, Kato has a great parts department. Phil Hampshire asked me if he thinks that a barrel plug is better than a DPDT switch for switching from DC to DCC and back again, or is it just a different method? It's really just my method. What I had originally done was I had made it a quick release so that I could change stuff out quickly without having to undo screw terminals and things like that. And since I already had it that way, I just made another plug so I could switch it out. But honestly, a double pole, double throw switch is going to be a lot faster if you are converting for that reason, if you're converting a lot. But I just use the barrel plug because I only occasionally run regular DC and I run DCC, and it's more of just a quick release for me, and it was just an easier switch. But yeah, double pole, double throw, that's hard to say, is definitely, if you're going to be doing a lot, that's definitely a better way to go. Shukaku the Crazy asked me, what's a good tool for reducing flange sizes? He says he recently got 2 00 scale engines and coaches that the flanges are too large for his Code 100 track. Those are some big flanges. They keep hitting the plastic parts. Well, if those are coaches, you can probably just replace the wheels. In terms of the engines, I'm not really sure. I've never sanded down the flanges, and if you do it wrong, it's going to be out of balance. So that's a tough question, but for the coaches, you can definitely just replace the wheel sets. I would definitely check out for the engines. I would definitely look at some British model railway forums, and I would check out over there because I've never had the issue with Code 100 track. I've also never tried to run 00 on Code 100 track. So definitely check out some of those British resources. They may be able to help you out a little bit. And also check out the manufacturer's website. They may have some parts that you can swap out. Core Jansen 1958 asked me, he says, since I buy Scale Train's locomotive DCC Ready, what type of decoders do I put in them? And is the TCS M1 a good candidate for it? Well, the TCS M1 is just a general decoder that you can wire up anything, but Scale Train's locomotives come DCC ready, which means that they have a socket of some kind that you can connect a decoder to. Now for HO scale, you're going to be using 21-pin decoders, which you can just plop them right in. And for N-scale, you're going to be using Next18 decoders. And for N-scale, I typically use, for non-sound, I use the NCE Next18 decoder. And for sound, I like to go with Soundtrax. That is my favorite and my preference. So yes, they are easy to convert to DCC from DCC Ready. The TCS M1 is not going to be your best option. Definitely go with a Next18 decoder for N-scale and a 21-pin decoder for HO scale. Paul88 asked me if I have any ideas on corn syrup or ethanol buildings, and apparently no one makes them. Well, I went and looked up a lot of different corn syrup facilities and ethanol buildings, and the thing I came up with is they look kind of like a weird hybrid between like a chemical plant, oil refinery type thing, and a grain silo, one of those. So I think the best thing would be to do some kit bashing with those type of things and just look at the individual parts of the corn syrup facility or the ethanol buildings and try to figure out stuff that works best. So some of the grain silo, the grain elevators, and then some of the like an oil refinery kits and things like that. That's probably going to be your best way. And some other tanks, just look for the individual parts. That's what I would look at. But now that I'm interested in this, I might have to try 3D printing this. So thanks for the idea, Paul. Tia Edge 2094 asked me what are my thoughts on making a ribbon rail train. Said he's found some cars but can't find anything to use for the welded rail that won't derail. Any suggestions? Well, funny thing is that my family is members of the North Carolina Transportation Museum, which has a little train that rides back and forth and is right next to the Salisbury Yard in Salisbury, North Carolina. And they have one of those ribbon rail trains, and they're loading it up almost every time we are there. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And what I would think about doing is something with some, I would almost consider something like some thin, like if you could cut construction paper down to strips. I don't really know. This sounds like something I want to challenge, but something really flexible would be the way. And it really depends on the scale that you're doing, but maybe something like paper. Some colored paper would be a way to go. If you could get it down into really thin strips, maybe like cut it with a paper cutter or a straight edge or something like that. But that might work. I don't know. I'd have to figure it out. I'd have to play with it. But that is my initial thought, is that if you took like some very like typing paper consistency, maybe even up to construction paper, and cut it into very thin strips that look like rail, maybe that would work. But I don't know. That's very interesting to figure out. Joe Bernard 618, he said that he's a little bit confused on this, and can he run a DCC locomotive on just DC power? Yes, as long as the decoder is set to dual mode where it can do DC and DCC. And most decoders are set that way. If not, you just have to go and set it, and it's actually really easy in JMRI if you have that. But most decoders are set to where they'll run on DCC without any adjustments. The Train Lover DK asks, when would you like to expand your layout behind you, because you have shown your tracks that are just the end and then the one in the corner. I have two turnouts that go to nowhere on the layout. One, as a matter of fact, is right there, and those are spots that for potential expansion, I don't know if I'm ever actually going to do it, but those are the two spots that I would do expansions if I was going to expand the layout. Now, I'm probably going to be building a new layout here soon because I'm moving back into the garage to get more space to build a new layout, and I've got some interesting things I want to do with that, but we're going to see what happens to this layout back here. But I'm probably not going to expand it. I think my original idea was to have it come out underneath and almost have what I call like a forward staging fiddle track right here, but I don't know if I'm actually going to do anything with that now. Humanity Junction, how you doing, Heath? He asked me if my Broadway Limited Big Boy is more expensive than your steam locomotive. Yeah, it is right now. I am doing some modifications to my steam locomotive that are going to make it total more expensive. But as of right now, yes, the Broadway Limited Big Boy is my most expensive locomotive. And it's probably going to stay that way for a while until I finish the modifications that I'm doing. Lon Luna 721 says that they have completed their first DC layout and says that they want DCC, and they've seen so many videos and they're looking for a system that is affordable and not too complicated for beginners. And this is a bit of a complicated question because the most affordable system out there is DCC EX, but that might not be the simplest system for people who are really scared of coding and things like that, even though they've made a lot of effort into making this completely code free for the average person. But if you're looking for a system that kind of bridges the gap between DC and DCC, I would definitely look at the MRC Tech 6. It's about $100, $110, $115, right around there, so it's definitely on the more affordable side of DCC systems, and it can run DC just fine, and it can also run DCC. You can even do some simple programming with it, and you can control all of your CVs if you have sounds and things like that, and you can do all of that. It even has an add-on that you can do to have a handheld throttle as well that you can buy separately. But the MRC Tech 6 kind of bridges that gap. If you're looking for another really simple system, there's also the Bachmann EZ Command and the NCE DCC Twin that has dual throttles. That's another simple DCC system. But in terms of doing both at the same time without having too many of the weird issues, I would definitely look at that MRC Tech 6. If you're looking at probably the top tier of the starter systems, you're looking at the NCE Powercab starter set and the Digitrax Zephyr. And then after that, you're getting into the more advanced systems. But I'll try to link all of these in the description below so that you can check them out. If you have a question that you would like answered in next month's Q&A, you can put that in the comments below and you might see it next month. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee, and happy railroading.